If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to the People's Guild. If you are invested in Splinterlands, or if you are just curious about Splinterlands, then this podcast is for you.
All right, guys. Well, today, as promised a couple of weeks ago, we had Allie on and kind of walked through her Web3 journey. And on for today, as promised, we've got her partner and kind of behind the scenes business partner as well, Mason. And yeah, without further ado, we just want to thank you for taking the time to hop on and talk shop with us. And we're looking forward to get to know you a little bit better and your journey along the way, Mason.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. So I just want to kick off, like Ali mentioned that you guys got like an email from Splinterland. So, to get this collaboration working. So I was wondering, like, what were your personal initial thoughts when you heard about this?
Yeah, I mean, so we get reach outs from lots of games. And so it's something that we have to dig through quite often. Is just like the pile up of emails of games that want to work with Allie. And there's a lot of spam in there, like really low quality games. And so sometimes it's hard to tell it apart. But Allie and I have been into crypto for like 6 years. So when we saw a Web3 game pop into the box, it's at least we have to take a little bit of a pause to make sure that it's not just, somebody trying to shill an NFT project that's not going to go anywhere. But it looked like an official reach out. It was very professional. I was like, let's at least take a look into it. And so I just pulled up the game. I made an account real quick and I played a couple games just to see what it was all about. And I was like, you know what? Seems like a legitimate game. I don't know how good it is yet. It's hard to tell after just 1 or 2 games. But I was like, it's at least worthwhile to like follow up on the email. And so we just sent like a quick response, basically gave them some rates. And we're just asking like, what would you expect from us? And it just progressed from there. But very quickly, I think we started to realize, okay, they've been around for a while. They know what they're doing. And it looked like probably one of the best Web3 reach outs that we'd actually gotten. And so I was like, hey, let's give it a real shot and try and learn this game and make some good content around it.
Nice.
Hey, was there any kind of surface level awareness of Splinterlands prior to that reach out, or was that initial introduction kind of your first passing?
Yeah, that was both of our first time even hearing about the game, which I was personally pretty surprised about because I've kept my pulse on crypto pretty well over the last 6 years. I've even played some really weird games. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of something called P3D,
No.
but they had one of like the weirdest games I've ever seen in crypto back in like the 2018 depths of the bear market. And this was like one of the only things I made money on that whole year. But they came up with this concept of a game where like, it was basically just like who could win the big prize pool. And you had different teams. And the way you would win is if you bought the last key. But if you bought a key, it would extend the timer by 30 seconds. And so people were buying these keys to extend the timer right when it would get to the very end. And then it would start to pile up. But the other way you could play the game is if you bought a key, you would start to make money from the other people buying the keys. And so like, I'll try not to waste too much time on the podcast talking about this random game, but it's just kind of like, I'm always like, whenever somebody's like crypto and games, I'm like, I get very interested. And that thing got up to like $1 million prize pool before it finally popped. But what was cool is if you bought a key early enough, like you're like, oh, this thing's just never going to end because somebody's going to keep extending the timer, you would residually make your money back on that purchase over the course of time. So it was like a really interesting game theory around this one prize pool that would pop. And after the first one, it kind of died out because it really wasn't sustainable, but it was fun to just like see the social experiment play out. And so just to bring this back, like whenever I see anything like that, I'm always like, let me dig in and see what's going on under the hood. And I hadn't heard of Splinterlands. So I'm like, I'm a little bit surprised. It'd been around for like 4 years now. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it seems like it's picking up some steam. Definitely had a big rush over that last bull market, and hopefully it'll have one over the next one.
Yeah. So like, I kind of agree. I'm just wondering, it seems just interesting you saying that, because I think maybe because we're in this bubble of Splinterlands and we kind of just think nothing else is happening apart from Splinterland. So
the opposite experience of me.
Yeah, so maybe something is just missing, isn't it, with maybe the marketing, that it's just not getting out there, possibly.
Honestly, I'm going to throw this out there. I could be wrong. But I think chains make a really big difference. Like the chain that your game is on is like a discoverability mechanism for a lot of people. So when Solana started blowing up, if you had an NFT project on Solana, you started doing really well because there was a whole bunch of new people getting marketed Solana. And then they were like hot NFT projects on Solana on Google. And then you come across like all those indexing websites, and then you see like the top games on Solana. And so if you're into Binance Smart Chain or Ethereum, Polygon, like you're going to be seeing what the top projects on those blockchains are. Hive, like I looked into it after learning about Splinterlands, which is another blockchain. I think I'd heard it once or twice, but just never really looked into. And when I look at an indexing website of Hive, I see Splinterlands at like 100,000 users, and then Hive Swap with like 500 to 1,000 users, and then nothing else. Like it's pretty dead. So I think like you guys are kind of in your little bubble on the Hive blockchain, and there's not that much going on there besides Splinterlands, which I think Splinterlands is an amazing application. It's better than like 90% of the stuff on these other blockchains, but there's just so much stuff on those blockchains that they're much higher in that list.
Yeah.
So what do you think about, so when we had Allie on, it was just prior to the Runicore release, and I think it's safe to say that an 80-second, 90-second sellout was pretty significant. But obviously, as Splinterland's kind of first crypto gamers, in my mind, it's a fantastic marketing opportunity to move and have something available on the ETH blockchain. And you kind of just alluded to that. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts, Mason, on, what does this do for moving the needle? Are we going to, potentially make some waves on the Ethereum blockchain with this? How do you kind of foresee this playing out?
I really like that announcement. That was probably one of my favorite things from that town hall. And I'll say, like, I think it's a really good start. I think you'll get some people with that, especially if you make waves on the sellout on Ethereum and just doing decent volume. Like you're totally going to get indexed at that point with all the other NFT sets on Ethereum. People dig through those. They have all sorts of different apps and trackers that are giving them signals as to what's hot right now. And then people tweet about it, and that stuff makes its way through all these different social media outlets, and it's a discoverability mechanism for sure. So I like that a lot. I think that they can go further with it. And the success of this one campaign is really going to determine whether they want to keep pouring resources into something like that. But it got me thinking something like, we've sold some NFTs with Allie Coin. It would be really cool to have a card that we partner with where one of our NFTs can also be represented in that card. We could share some royalties from that NFT set with Splinterlands, and then Splinterlands would also be bringing new people into our ecosystem because they would be owning some of our NFTs. And they could do this with all sorts of different ecosystems, bring a different card to each one and partner with a few different people just to give up a little bit of those secondary sales to partner with other ecosystems as a discoverability and marketing mechanism. And so I'm interested to see, if this one test case is really successful, if they want to do more exactly like this or switch to other blockchains or work with other communities. But yeah, I really thought the move was really smart.
Yeah.
Just to clarify real quickly, sorry to cut you off, Karen. When you refer to other ecosystems, are you indirectly referring to other blockchains and using the smart contracts to integrate the two, or would you mind clarifying that a little bit?
Yeah, I was being intentionally ambiguous. When I say ecosystems, it could be anything from as wide as a blockchain to as narrow as a specific NFT community. And there are some things that are kind of in between there. Like I would say Bored Apes is an ecosystem of multiple NFT sets, a coin. They're going to be on multiple chains at some point, I'm sure. There's also things like Uniswap or Sushi Swap. Like Sushi Swap's a really interesting one because they're on like 10 different chains, and they're also a big marketplace with their, like all these different coins trading. So a partnership with them could look really interesting where they get a few cards within the game. They list your token in exchange, or they list the SPS token and maybe some other assets from the game. And there's like, it's anything that happens with Sushi Swap, there's going to be like marketing around it. Now, I don't know if that's something that's interesting in Sushi Swap. I don't know if that's something that's interesting in Splinterlands, but I think that those types of partnerships between ecosystems, right, where it's like, it could be a whole blockchain, but they're typically really hard to get to partner with you. Could be something slightly smaller, like a Sushi Swap, or it could be something really small, like an Alicoin that's on the smaller end of things, but I still think brings value, especially when it's something tangential to the industry. Like Allie is a strategy and card game player. So I think an ecosystem like that makes a lot more sense than just some random thing like Solana monkey business on Solana, even though that is a much bigger project overall.
What do you like from your experiences with NFTs? Like, what do you think would benefit this new Rooney that's come out, like utility wise down the line for Splinterland? Like, do you have any like ideas that would provide utility for it?
For in addition to being a card within the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it depends. That's so hard because utility is like whatever you want it to be. You know, stuff that like we tend to think about is like, well, maybe, you know, there's some you could create as some really popular thing to do, create a chat room in your Discord. Only people with the Rooney thing have access to that. I think it's kind of basic now, and a lot of people are doing it. You could get a little bit more interesting with it, like secret announcements, secret spoilers for the game, talking about where like the next Rooney is going to launch. You could give whitelist spots to the current Rooney holders for the next partnered project so that they get more of a guaranteed inlet, and it's like you kind of chain your way down. Those are some of the things that I think about, but I really think the best utility has to do with what is your business model. And Splinterland's business model is they make a really good game, and there's a lot of competition for the game. So having access to that card, I think, is really like the best utility you can have. But maybe like tournaments where you can only play in it if you have the card, or other things that are more specific to the game. I really like those better than the really generic stuff like the chat rooms.
Yeah. So like with like we talk about utility, and though like Alicoin is a big thing for you guys. So like in terms of like the Alicoin, and like you give the people in your community like benefits for that, right? And I know the DAO is one of them, right? So I kind of was looking at your webpage before, and it's really interesting how your philosophy kind of is pretty similar to Splinterlands, in that it wants to hand over the game to the community. And this is what you mentioned as well in your, like, about the Aliverse, right? You want to hand it over the community. So could you explain a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah. So, you know, like social tokens as a concept was really interesting to us like 6 years ago. And I created Allie Coin on the Ethereum blockchain, and pretty much nobody used it. And I for good reason. I honestly think like Ethereum was expensive to use, even at like $1 a transaction back then. People are like, why? There was no liquidity. And then Rally came along and really helped us with a lot of basic utility for the coin. Like they gave us a trading platform, so there was liquidity for the coin, and there were some rewards coming in from the Rally token, kind of like Sushi Swap gives out sushi to anybody who's staking liquidity there. Rally was doing a similar thing for creator coins. And so we jumped on a chance to start like building this thing out. And I'll say in the early days, we were kind of like very uncharted territory, and we didn't know exactly what to do. And so we were like, let's try some things. And the first thing we came up with was the tournament circuits, where we would give priority access to people who owned Allie Coin. It was a great way to market the coin to Allie's audience, because just being like, hey, buy my coin is not a great approach, especially with the Twitch audience. They're like, what is this thing? Are you trying to scam us? But with tournaments, it was like very clear, sort of, there's obvious utility to owning this coin. There's only 16 slots in these tournaments. The prize pools are actually pretty good in comparison to a lot of the stuff that's out there. And I can get access to those in perpetuity if I pick up some coin and hold on to it. And that got people sort of in the door. And then crypto started booming, and people were like, oh my God, this is actually like something that you could potentially make money on. But that wasn't how we wanted to advertise it. We just wanted to create that utility. But people like, I mean, when the markets are going up, the amount of interest is like kind of off the charts across the board. And that was a really amazing thing to get Alicoin started. Was we had the marketing through the tournaments. We had some price appreciation because the markets were doing really well, and Rally was supporting us, so we could like give some of that money back to the community of Hearthstone players. As it started to evolve from that point, we started to realize, like, you know, what is kind of our mission statement? And we've actually spent like the last 3 months really trying to reimagine a lot of that for the future of Alicoin, and be a little bit more transparent with what's happening behind the scenes and what we're planning on doing with like the money that we've made and the treasury that we've built. And also, how we want to work with Web3 games moving forward. And Splinterlands was kind of one of our first attempts at that, collaborating with the Web3 community rather than a game like Hearthstone, where it's still very Web2. You don't get to own your in-game assets at all. And we like Web3 as a better path forward. So, I'm sorry, did you want to jump in with a?
No, that was just letting Ben know I'm gonna.
Okay, got it.
I need to bite my tongue when you're done. Sorry to cut you off, man. Keep going.
Yeah, sorry, I had another thing on the DAO and the treasury. Oh, so okay, so with Alicoin, one thing we realized is that a lot of people have contributed money to Allie over time to support her content creation because they like her doing it full time because they get entertainment out of it. And a lot of those people just kind of donate money to Allie. They're not getting a specific perk and for pay her. You can pay $1,000 or $1 and you're still getting the same content. One thing we thought was like a cool way to give back to the community was just asking them to donate through the coin instead. We were like, hey, if you buy the coin, you're helping increase the value of the ecosystem overall rather than just Allie's personal pockets. And so that really helped, I think, with getting people a little bit more like, I think of Web3 as building stronger connections rather than more connections with people. And so a lot of Web2 is just about building as wide of an audience as possible. You see this with things like TikTok. TikTok people don't convert very easily on a sponsorship deal. You could have 1 million people on TikTok and that's worth about, I don't know, 50,000 on Twitch because the Twitch people are just a much stronger connection. And I really think Web3 goes one level deeper than something like Twitch because now they feel a little bit more economically tied to you. They feel like your success is also going to be their success. And so people can now say, I really like what Allie's trying to build. Not only do I want to support her in building it so that I can enjoy the fruits of that labor, whether it's content or tournaments or anything else, but I can also be kind of a part owner in the things that she's building. And if those brands do really well in the future, then I get to do well as well. And it's been really cool to see some people in her community that, you know, don't make a ton of money in their day job, but they managed to get laser eye surgery or a new gaming chair or gaming PC. And they got all this because we created Alicoin. And instead of just asking people to donate, we created a community pot that we can do cool things with. But yes, moving forward, we still want to build more out of the ecosystem than just like asking for donations to go into this pot of money and to run tournaments that people have access to. We'd like to really help people learn about Web3. One of the things that I've been trying to build out is we've been building this thing, content management system, if you're familiar with that. It's no, they're so like Squarespace, WordPress, all these things, they help you like build websites and they have little tools that are plug and play. Well, there's not a lot of these for Web3 yet. So we actually built one ourselves. And what we're doing with it is I want to create content around Web3 games that is token gated by Alicoin. So we can both pay people to produce that content, put it up on the website, and then we can make a portion of the article free and the full thing if you have a certain amount of Alicoin to get access to it. And so like education is a big thing, I think, for Web3. I was even trying to learn Splinterlands and I could not find a lot of great content out there for specific strategies. I'm like, you know, what's the most popular strategies for Black Chaos Legion decks? And I like very little information out there. And I know in Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, there are like all of these premium article sites that make decent money with subscription models. And I was like, well, we could do that with Alicoin. And instead of it being a subscription where you pay monthly, you buy into the coin. So you hold the amount. And when you no longer want access to all the articles that are being produced by that ecosystem, you can sell the coin. So that the treasury, like one thing we did with Splinterlands is we bought one of the Splinterlands licenses and we're going to be staking that, you know, for the foreseeable future to earn in-game assets. And we'd like to try and use those to delegate to Alicoin members. And so with each thing that we do in Web3, we try to think, how can we give back to the community and create a better experience for them? I think delegating them cards, giving them content, creating tournaments for them, all of these things craft an ecosystem that people want to be a part of if they're into Web3 gaming.
Yeah, mate, it sounds beautiful. It sounds beautiful. So this kind of feels like something new, right? It kind of feels like you guys want one of the innovators of this type of system that you're creating? Or did you have like a model that you were like that you could like gain inspiration from, or were you just kind of experimenting as you go along?
I'd say it's more just experimenting as we go along. I mean, obviously I try to draw inspiration from all of the different projects that I admire in crypto. And since I've been in the industry for 6 years, I've seen a lot of people succeed and fail. And so I'm trying to say like, well, what made the successful people successful and why did these other people fail? And I'm trying to do as much of the successful stuff as I can. But there's a lot of trial and error. But I would say very much like we're creating the model. And I've noticed it because we'll do something and then a bunch of other gaming creators will copy us. And I'm not going to call people out specifically, but there's been some people that pretty much took exactly what we did and did the same thing. Other creators on Rally. And no, like there's no shade being thrown in that statement. I think it's totally fine. I like seeing other people successfully implement the model. I think it means that we did something right. But
it is very much like same thing.
Yeah, it's like we definitely feel like we're having to carve the path out ourselves. And even in this bear market, we've really had to rethink some of the things that we were doing before to make sure that they're going to be as successful. Like, you know, how much of your success is attributed to the bull market versus what you're doing correctly. And I think we've had to rethink a couple things as the tide has shifted.
Oh man, I love this whole philosophy. I'm going to go back and listen to this segment again just to kind of fully sink my teeth in. Yeah, kudos to you guys. You know, it sounds like you guys, you know, pioneering the way with Allie Coin on Ethereum 6 years ago. Rally seemed to kind of jumpstart that for you guys a little bit. And like you guys just mentioned, seeing folks copy that model and implement that on their own is testament to you guys, you know, hitting the nail on the head. So kudos to that. I'm super interested in your content management system. So, you know, as you mentioned, you kind of speak in my language when you said looking for the Chaos Legion death deck strategy. That's my bread and butter right there, man. But you know, the best resource that comes to my mind is Peaked or Peak D, depending on how you pronounce it, just in terms of finding articles generally related to strategy or, you know, which cards to kind of build your hand around, that sort of stuff. But and Kieran and I have talked pretty much ad nauseum about this. It's so challenging to find, you know, you can't just hop in there and there's not a glossary of keywords. It's, you know, a little bit of a needle in a haystack trying to find the right articles. So with your content management system, is this something that is getting close to being live, and kind of how do you envision this playing out for the community?
Yeah, so the overall content management system is live. The thing that we haven't done yet is token gating on Solana. We had it set up for Rally. And I think that platform to me is a little bit dead in terms of like that centralized product that they had where they had their own blockchain and it was running their website and we were using those coins for all of the utility. We've been migrating people over to the Solana blockchain, which is more decentralized, not as much as something like Ethereum or Bitcoin, but it's definitely enough that we feel comfortable building on there. And there's a lot of tools being built on there. So we need to get the token gating fully set up. But other than that, it's really just a matter of uploading the articles and they end up on their own web pages. I will say, like, could it be like, could there be more features? Absolutely. Like I would love to have indexing features like you're talking about, where you could say, okay, I'm interested in this splinter. Give me all the articles for that. We technically could build that the way that it is now, but it would be a little bit more of a manual process. Like you could say, you'd go to like the deck guide section and then it could have a button for each of the different splinters. And then that button would take you to a page that has like an article list. That's a way we could do it, but it wouldn't be smart in terms of like your ability to sort them automatically. Like if you wanted to say, okay, I want low mana cost articles or high mana cost articles, like we would have to manually build all of those sections, and that would be a lot of work. I would love to get there eventually. I think it's a matter of, can we get funding to keep building out this tool? I self-funded a lot of it, and then we got a little bit of Rally funding to kind of start polishing it off. And it works fairly well as a basic CMS, but to do all of the stuff I'd like to do with it could take a while. So, you know, will we get some basic articles out there to sort of test the waters on the concept? I think that that's probably doable in a month or two. Getting it to the point where it's like as fancy as something like I'll just throw out Channel Fireball for Magic. That might be like at least a year of development.
Mm-hmm. So how has your, when you guys first started this business, how has that initial, just that little baby of an idea, how has that, like, was your initial vision, is it maintained, like stayed the same, or has it just gone this way, that way? And is it just like, as the further you go, the more inspiration you get? Like, how has it changed?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little of both, but probably more of the it's everywhere sort of deal.
Yeah.
There's some things that I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you had a social token based around a creator, and if you believed in that creator's success, you could buy their coin and kind of ride their coattails. I think a little bit of that vision is happening.
Yeah.
But I will say I've been a little disappointed in how it's played out a lot across the board, where there's like 95% of the time people start this quest and they realize that it's a lot of extra work on top of the content creation that they're already putting out there. And you really kind of need like a team around you in order to fulfill a bit of that vision. And I've only seen a few people be successful at that, but the people who have done it well, I'm like really impressed by. And I think it's super cool that this now exists.
Yeah.
As for our particular vision, it's definitely changed a lot over time. Like there are things where we're so certain that one thing is going to work really well and we do it for a while and then it doesn't feel as great anymore. And then there's just all these nights where like I'm having all these thoughts of like, what could this look like in 5 years? And bits and pieces of that end up making it in there, but it's really just like constantly changing and evolving as the space does, because there's so many things happening in crypto that it's hard to keep up with it all. And it also gets to the point like metas change, right? Like even how NFTs were minted before is not like how NFTs are minted now. I mean, we had like, minting for a low amount of money and then minting for a high amount of money and then free mints and then Dutch auctions. And there's just so many things happening just around NFTs. And we went through a little bit of that phase with Allie Coin, where it was like, we had a social token before NFTs were even really a thing. I mean, there was CryptoKitties in 2017, but there was no Bored Apes when we made Alicoin. And then Bored Apes kind of set off this whole NFT PFP thing. And people were like, are you guys going to do NFTs? And so we started making some NFTs, but the first ones we made were like this series of Allie, we call them Allie Ross paintings. And she does these Twitch streams where she does Bob Ross painting tutorials and follows along. So we took one of those finished pieces. It was actually, we made a YouTube video out of it. It's like a 10-minute time lapse of the whole painting stream. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we took in that 10-minute time lapse and we condensed it down to a 30-second GIF that just loops. And we made that an NFT. And so we sold 6 of those and we were like, let's just put them up at $500, like, and see if it sells. They sold within like 2 minutes. And then, and then they got relisted for 2,500, one of them for 12,000, and they all sold again.
Wow. Holy moly.
We were just like, okay, people really like NFTs. Like, I guess we sold it too low, but we'll take it. And then we were like, okay, so let's do something else. And the one thing I didn't like about that experience was that they were originally bought by flippers. That's why they sold so fast. And then like some of the community members that actually really wanted them for the long term were like, that's way too expensive for me now. And I wanted to create an NFT that was like a way of marking all of the people in the ecosystem as like, you've been around for a while and you're not just like here to milk us, but you're here like to actually like be in it for a while. And so we created these Alicoin badge NFTs and we sold silver, gold, and mythic ones. And so those are like kind of our premier holders, and they're supposed to get early access to all of the future NFT sets. And the only other NFT set we did was Alley Cats, which were based on our real life cats. And we have about 500 of those. And that was actually one that
NFT is not cats.
Well, they're based on our real cats, but the NFTs are cats as well. Yes, they're digital. Right. They're digital drawings of the cats.
Awesome.
Yeah. I know I might be rambling a little bit too much for your question here, but
I
like,
love
this
it,
is
man.
all stuff that we never would have known to do when we first launched Alicoin. But as we saw different things happening in the space and we were like, okay, these people are doing something well, I like what they're doing and the community's asking for it, we would also just jump on and try and make that happen too.
Yeah. Well, like I suppose even with like, for example, like Splinterlands just comes knocking on your door, right? You can't kind of like, you're not planning for that. That just lands on your door and then you just see what happens. And I can imagine that's just sent you off on a different path as well, right?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say on that Splinterlands topic. I mean, when we started Alicoin, like Web3 gaming was not like really even talked about. We had no idea play to earn was going to be a thing. I guess Splinterlands was around, so maybe we should have known, but it really was like not on our radar at all. And then I'd say like a year after we launched Alicoin, NFTs started becoming more popular. NFTs started getting mentioned in games more. People started talking about play to earn gaming. And we were like, that's a really cool path for us to pivot into because we're all about games. That's why we started this. Currently, we're using Alicoin to support Web 2 games, but what if we used it to support Web 3 games instead? And we even started talking about building our own game. And we are working on something which I'm pretty excited about, but I don't want to talk too much about it because I made this mistake last time with Alley Cat Fight Club, where we had an idea for that as a game, where the cats were going to fight with each other over Allie Coin in this futuristic streets of the metaverse, and we built a bunch of art around it. But we were trying to build it in Unity, and Unity development's like really expensive. And it got to the point where I just didn't think it was worth it to try and finish out that project. So we came up with a different idea, which I'm actually liking way more. And I think it has a lot more potential. But this time I don't want to like overpromise anything. So I'm trying to kind of like stray away from that. But basically, I realized that Web3 gaming was eventually going to happen. There were going to be good games, and we wanted to try and support people. And so the Splinterlands reach out really came at a really great time because we were looking for a partner like that anyway. And so we're like, whether Splinterlands ends up being a long-term thing or not is going to kind of be based on how the Splinterlands community interacts with the Alicoin community. You know, whether Alicoin people move and start playing Splinterlands, and we're starting a guild and we're trying to get our players or our community members into the game. And if Splinterlands people come over to Alicoin and they're interested in being a permanent part of the ecosystem, whether that's creating content or just, you know, joining the guild or whatever else it ends up being, we're totally open with the Web3 landscape. And so I know this is a Splinterlands podcast. I do think there's room to continue this for a long time. But just to give you where we're at as a community, you know, we're always just trying to reassess things and say, is this the best path forward for us? We have limited resources. We have to pick and choose where we spend our time.
Awesome. Well, real quickly, and this kind of serves as a nice segue to a question that just kind of popped into my head there. But before I pose that question, I just want to quickly acknowledge the NFT gold that you struck with the Allie Ross. I love that you were kind of tugging on the nostalgic heartstrings of Bob Ross. I know, you know, I spent many a day as a kid watching that legend. So I love that you guys A, put that out, and B, that the response from the community was so awesome. So with the Alicoin stuff, I know, you know, we had Allie on a couple of weeks ago, and that was just prior to the 2 tournaments that you guys ran with Alicoin and Splinterlands, and here we are on the heels of that. How were the tournaments? You know, what is your gauge for success? What did the crossover look like from the Alicoin community coming into Splinterlands? I did kind of scroll through the entrance list, and I noticed some big kind of Splinterlands community names in there. So I was definitely happy and surprised to see that. So I'd love to hear your take on tournament success, and, you know, what do those look like going forward, if at all?
Yeah. So I would say overall they were fairly successful. I wouldn't say it was anything crazy. Some of the goals that we had were, you know, how many Splinterlands people can we get to join the Alicoin Discord and be interested in Alicoin? I will say one of our earlier hopes was that we could CoinGate, like so with the Hearthstone tournaments, we would do like a 16 player cap, and people with Alicoin would get early registration into the tournament. So typically you'd see like 12 to 14 slots go to Alicoin people, and then everyone else would get raffled into the tournament afterward. I wanted to kind of do something like that in Splinterlands, but what ended up happening, the way we set it up, is that it just had a password attached to it. So even if we had made that password only accessible to people with Alicoin, password could easily get shared amongst people after even one person finds out about it. And two, there was no cap on people getting into the tournament. So who cares if you get to register early? As soon as it opens up for public registration, anyone can join at that point. So we kind of realized that there was no real exclusivity we could give to Alicoin holders, which means that we couldn't really give a benefit to the people who wanted to play in this tournament, like a reason to buy Alicoin. And I think that was maybe like an oversight on how we designed it. And I'd like to maybe either do like cap tournaments in the future or tournaments that are only accessible to Alicoin holders. But it's a bit hard because you can't give people unique join codes, at least from my understanding. Maybe there is a way to do that, and we might need to look into that more. That I think, like, you know, trying to give value to Alicoin holders by giving them priority registration, or they're the only people that can participate, is really where we'd like to head with it. But it was still a nice sort of marketing campaign from both sides. We got to market Alicoin to Splinterlands people, get some of them into our Discord where they would get the password to join the tournament. And we also got to showcase a lot more of Splinterlands, the competitive side on the upper end, and a little bit more of the competitive side on the lower end, through the two tournaments, one being the Diamond tournament, one being the more bronze, not novice tournament. And from like viewership, fun, the chatters, the feedback we got from people, the people who won Alicoin, I think that part was a really big success. Everybody seemed to have a great time. I think the Splinterlands community really enjoyed it, and we got to host you guys afterward. We got to boost the category for a while. I know there were some people that it was like their third or fourth time hearing about Splinterlands because of, you know, Allie streaming it before, it being mentioned to the Discord, Allie tweeting about it. And I think this was finally like, okay, she's hosted a couple tournaments for it. They're not even sponsored anymore. And she seems to be enjoying herself and having fun. The commentary is interesting. It makes the gameplay seem fun. And they were finally like, okay, give me a spellbook code. Let me start trying this thing out for myself. And so I think just the more touch points that we have with the game, the more that people start to see like, okay, maybe it is worth trying out, even if they have reservations about NFTs or Web3 gaming. And there's a lot of that on Twitch. So it's kind of understandable that people aren't just going to like jump right in as soon as they hear about it the first time. They need more of that, like slow kind of hand holding of you being like explaining it in little tidbits that they can digest. Like, okay, it's an auto battler. And then the next time it's like, okay, there's some strategy in the auto battler. And then, okay, that like, this is the more in-depth strategies. And then people are like, okay, I want to try that out. And I know that because I'm a huge card game player since I was like 10 years old. And when I would see people playing Magic on the sidewalk, I just had to learn what they were doing and what the strategy was. And then same thing happened to me with Hearthstone. And that's kind of what I felt like when I played Splinterlands. You know, the first couple games, I was like, it's interesting. I don't know exactly what's going on or what the strategies are like. And then I started playing the game more. I started seeing more of the interesting strategies. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, I like what he did there. I want to try that out myself. I want to try and tweak it. Can I make it better this way? And I think that's like kind of the mental hook that a lot of card gamers need, is like, you know, how can I flex my creativity in the strategy game? And they're kind of all about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a new player, and I saw a stream where Ali, you know, was getting sent all these cards, and like you were looking from the sidelines, but like, so you've had to build up the deck, you know, from scratch yourself, like your own personal account. So what has been your main focus? Because I believe you are up to, is it gold now?
Yeah, I think I hit gold, gold 1. I think I am right now. I think I was like almost about to touch diamond, and then I didn't progress because I didn't quite have like the diamond level cards. I will say, like, that's one of my gripes with Splinterlands is how high the bar is for competing at the high level. Like, I'm used to expensive games. I've played Legacy Magic where the decks are like $3,000. But you only have to buy, you know, maybe 1 or 2 legacy decks, and you can specialize in those, and you can add different cards for different matchups and things. And maybe you're all in at like $8,000. Splinterlands, I feel like you could spend $8,000 and you still would not have a competitive diamond collection. And I'd like to see at least a format. It doesn't have to be all the formats, but a format that people can be competitive in for a few $1,000s. It gives them like an entryway. Because I know some competitive people in the Alicoin community that, you know, they'll play in our tournaments all the time, and they're frequently placing in the top 4. Those guys are like, I don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage in anything that I do. And they're also like, I probably can't drop $20,000, $30,000 on a video game. So for them, I think it's a huge turnoff to even consider playing the game if they can't build at least a competitive collection to go really flex their skills. And it was a bit of a frustration that I had too. Like I was over here spending, maybe $2,000-$3,000 on cards, and I could only get so far up the ladder with that. I would
Were
say
you
like
buying Chaos Legion, or you kind of going
mostly Chaos Legion. I dipped a little bit into Untamed for some of the cards that I felt like were really important. I've now picked up a Dr. Blight, which I felt like was just a card I kept getting crushed by if I didn't have one. And it's just so versatile, and it counters so many different strategies where like they're relying on one big tank that's just healing over and over again. And, for 4 mana, you can kind of just like counter that thing. And then you can build the rest of your lineup in a more flexible way. But not to dig too much in on a specific strategies here. Yeah, I'll say like the new player experience, it could handhold you a little better. And I'll like, it's not the biggest criticism in the world. I just think that I wanted to get to the point where I was earning SPS, and it was like hard for me to figure that out. Like I was like, I want to do this with just the playbook, the spell book, and some cards that people will delegate to me. So people were delegating me a couple cards, nothing like crazy. I was just like, what is the new player experience if I don't spend any money on the game and I just try and like start earning? Like, I know it won't be a lot, and I know I won't be able to compete in the high leagues, but what is that experience going to be like? And I tried it out, and it was really hard to get to the point where I was earning anything. And I think that, and I get that, because the lower you lower that bar, the more likely you are to get just bot farmed to death. And so I can understand them not wanting, it to be too easy, but I think there needs to be a happy medium. I think real players need a way to start earning, even if it's pennies a day. Just feel like, okay, I can free to play this to at least a certain point where I'm like kind of playing the game. And I think just the way the starter cards is and the spell book, and it's like not enough to really get the new player into it without dropping some money. And I get that. So I was like, okay, let's spend some money and see what that experience was like. And I think what's happened really is that the game has gotten really popular. And so these old sets where I was looking at like some of the cards that are in circulation, there's only like, I don't know, Byzantine kitties. I think there's like 4,000 of them. And I was like, you need 11 copies to have a 4-star of that card. And it's pretty good, as we saw in the Diamond tournament. So how many players can actually play with a level 4 version of that card? Forget how much it costs, but just how many players can play with it. And the answer is, like 400 or less. And I think to have a really good competitive game, if you look at Hearthstone, you look at Magic, they've got millions of players, right? And I just don't see a world where millions of people are playing a game and only 400 people can have that most powerful card. I think at a certain point, you need to print more cards. And I was kind of hoping for these newer sets to be like way higher print runs. But it seems like they're still sticking with, let's make sure these epic summoners cost over $100. And I'd like to see that bar being brought down so we can bring more people in. And you can still have the gold cards be really expensive. You can still have some wild formats or some really upper level formats that are using, like Legacy and Vintage and Magic are probably like the best examples. I mean, Vintage, you can play with a Black Lotus. It's like a multi-$1,000 card, and you kind of have to have one because it's just so strong in every deck. But Vintage isn't the most played Magic format. It might have the most expensive cards, but it's not what brings most of the people into the game. And when you have people playing Standard, where the decks only cost like a few $100, maybe even 50 for a cheap aggro deck, that mass of players brings value to the Vintage format, because it's sort of like the pinnacle of, if I play this game long enough, I'm going to build up a collection, and I'll start dipping my toes into Vintage as I progress through. It used to be called Extended. I don't know what it's called now. Now they have like Modern, and then Legacy, and then Vintage. I mean, I can see Splinterlands evolving in the same way, where you've got Wild all the way on one end with these really expensive cards being thrown around, which is just like a cool thing for people to observe. But then the competitive players can still get their gameplay in this sort of cheaper format that's more ubiquitous, where people can play with the max level cards. It still costs something, but it's much more manageable for the average person. So that's kind of my take on what the new experienced player was like.
Yeah.
And also what it was like trying to sort of matriculate through the system as a competitive player and somebody who's willing to put some money into the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new player experience, I think you hit it out of the park with that. It's savage. It's not fun. You just, you run into the same kind of robotic plays over and over. It looks like a bot name, acts like a bot name. It's probably a bot that's running the account, and escaping novice and even bronze is brutal. It just kind of sucks the fun out of the game. So it's interesting to me that you mention being competitive. How do you define that? So in my mind, you could be very competitive and potentially find a lucrative kind of way to play the game in silver, right? For a pretty affordable cost. I think the way that maybe you define being competitive is the same way that I am. I want to be in diamond. I want to be earning the big boys, SPS pools. And, eventually my goal is to get to champ, but like you, I'm trying my best to steer clear of Untamed and kind of go in onto the newer, more accessible editions that are still in print. So would you kind of take a couple steps back and define being competitive for us?
Yeah. So I think it comes down to like the severity of how your card collection impacts the way you play the game. And I'm going to give you a really weird analogy, but I think it's just kind of funny to imagine it as you were talking. So I'm going to throw it out there. But like competitive in tennis is kind of like, as long as I have a decent racket, right, I get to sort of test my skill versus my opponent. And you could take Roger Federer, and if you gave him a baseball bat to play with, I think I could beat him. And he's a lot better than me at tennis. I think that there's a certain point where I'm not really testing his skill anymore. I'm more just testing whether he has a racket in his hand. And I think that happens in like silver versus diamond. It's a very different game. If you're trying to play with a silver lineup against people with diamond cards, you're not going to win. It doesn't matter if you're outplaying them, outthinking them. Your strategy was insane. And they're playing like a dum-dum, like their cards are just so much stronger than yours. It doesn't really feel like a game at that point. It's like playing against a dude with a baseball bat in tennis. It's just impossible to hit the ball in. And I'd like to see people. I'm totally cool with there being some disparity in your card collection, right? I see this in Hearthstone and Magic and lots of other card games I played throughout my life, where it's like, if you don't have every single card, you can't be as competitive as these pro players that have access to everything, but you still can test your skill versus them. And you can still build your skill set in what you want to specialize in. I feel like even in this game, it's a little bit hard to even get to that point. Like if I want to focus on, let's just say I want to focus on the Black Splinter. I could even max out a collection in the Black Splinter, and then half the time I'm not able to play Black. And it's definitely, it's a frustrating thing. And you don't see that in many card games. And also we don't have a format that's like Arena in Hearthstone. So you see a lot of people trying to be competitive in Hearthstone. They're like, I don't have a full collection, but I think I'm good at the game. And I want to test my skill versus other people's skill to see kind of where I land on the just the skill testing part of the game. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at with competition is it's your skill testing. It's not collection testing. Like we know you have a better collection than me, but if I can beat you despite you having a better collection than me, that's skill testing. But if I have no chance at all, it's no longer testing my skill. And so you see players gravitate towards certain formats in these other card games. In Magic, it's drafting. In Hearthstone, it's Arena. And in this game, I'd love to see a format where you do something. I know they're talking about like these ghost card tournaments, but I thought like a really cool format would be something like you pay like 10 SPS and you enter into a format and it gives you and the other player identical collections of various levels and a rule set. And now you have to dig through this collection in 2.5 minutes of these new cards you were just given and figure out what the best lineup is. And so there's going to be certain cards that are missing that you might normally be used to playing with, but you get to test your skill at the game. You get to see, okay, if I was given this collection, can I build a lineup that's better than what my opponent can build? And that's a format that I would personally find very interesting for this game. It doesn't break, the current play to earn model that they're running right now, but it does let the people who are like hyper competitive that just want to see what their skill is versus another person, regardless of do they have a racket and I have a baseball bat, a chance to sort of see where they land on just the skill thing. And if they find out like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this game, those people tend to put money into it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think maybe, yeah. I think there's so many avenues with Splinterlands, and I think possibly the team has really focused on like nerfing the bots, right? So I think this is one of the problems when you start this game, is that the team's plan was to kind of nerf the bots, but in some ways it has definitely reduced the, you know, just like that player's first experience, it just really dampens it totally. But I don't know, I think there's so many talking points from that, right? But I think with Splinterlands, the market just dictates the game, right? When you've got this market, you know, which is kind of split, this is like stocks and shares, right? 1 minute you can buy Obsidian for 199, and then you look tomorrow, she's like 350.
Yeah, and I'm no stranger to that, because I, you know, like some of my favorite games have been Magic the Gathering and the Diablo 3 when it had the auction house. And so you had economies with value on all of these items and all of those games, and it does impact the play. And I think some people really hate that about Web3 gaming, because they think, you know, it becomes more about balancing the economy than balancing the game. And I think that's sort of like where competitive players draw the line. Like, and I know I'm using competitive incorrectly here, but I know like the way I'm trying to use it is people who just want to test their skill out in things, and they don't like testing their skill where they're at this huge disadvantage for some external factor other than their skill. And I kind of fall into that bucket a bit. Like I'd much rather pay to have the Magic deck that I need to play with than, you know, spend less money and play with a different deck.
Yeah.
So I totally hear your point though. Like they're balancing around bots. They're trying to do right by the players who bought a bunch of these cards and want those cards to maintain their value. And I think those things are really important. I think it's an ecosystem of things. And so you have to balance all of those, because in the long run, I think that these legacy restricted run cards do much better if there's a new wave of players coming into the game all of the time, because that's more people that are interested in owning those things. They're more interested in people watching people play with those things. They're going to be more interested in renting them sometimes. I think that you want as many people to want to play your game as possible, and that's going to benefit everybody. And so you have to find a way to balance, you know, not making the game super easily to bot, where you're just going to have bots farming the game all the time, but also make it welcoming to as many players as possible, so people feel like, you know, they can test themselves in the way that they want to test themselves and have fun playing the game.
Yeah.
It feels like it, and I think this has kind of been the theme of a couple of our episodes. But the best way forward for, you know, A, growing the game, and B, you know, I'm with you where, you know, some of my favorite tournaments are Chaos Legion only. You know, I have equal footing with my opponent. I wish that, you know, I'm looking forward to when it's Chaos Legion and Rift Watchers, where there's a little bit more variety introduced to those tournaments. It's, you know, oftentimes you run into mirror matches, and it comes down to RNG, which is not skill necessarily. But yeah, looking forward to you know, kind of seeing some of these things come to fruition through tournaments. I feel like that's probably the best way forward for the game to grow and to test these new sort of, you know, kind of arena type format where people are coming from equal footing, and it doesn't come down to, you know, what does your bank account look like, and, you know, do you have a max kitty in your lineup? So Weirdbeard, if you're listening, we got some ideas for you, man.
well, I think I think that's what Weirdbeard has mentioned many times, right? That's how the game is going to grow, by these ghost tournaments where people can see it actually, you know, esports. So I think that is the great thing about the team, is that they do listen to the community's concerns. You know, you can't please everyone, but I think they do see this as possibly a problem, and they are trying to work their way to kind of like fix this problem and get get more people into the game, right?
Yeah, when we were setting up that tournament with him, he mentioned the ghost card tournaments, and I was like, "That's awesome." And he seemed like he came in to help with the esports side of things, and he kind of gets that's a direction they need to explore. I often say with games like this where it's like a ladder system and you're playing against other players, like there's no real PvE content in this game. These things, they're made or broken by their esports scene. Like, is there that thriving competition? Is there high level play? Is there something to strive for? I think that gets people really excited to play themselves. You watch, professional sports or professional video games, and it makes you want to play. It makes you want to better yourself. That's why I think Twitch grew in popularity so much, is because people would watch all these cool things that people could do in games they were playing, and they were like, oh my God, I didn't even know you could do that. And so they get entertained by watching other people, build crazy forts in Fortnite that there's no way you could do that fast with your fingers, but then you load up the game and you give it your best shot and you have fun trying. And I think that sort of inspiration is really what drives people back to these types of competitive games. Yeah. And I'm really excited to see where the ghost card tournaments go. I'd love to, throw my input to the team if I can organize some of these thoughts and see if I can get them to implement some more formats that people can, really dive in competitively on and stress test themselves on because I love like the 2.5 minute games. They throw a rule set at you and you have to figure out what the optimal strategy is with what you're working with. It's a really cool thing to do. It's not super fun when you run into a max level guy with the untamed cards and you're like, well, it didn't really matter what I built. And, I'm the type of person who will open up Splinter tools after I lose, and I'll rearrange in all the formations that I can think of to try and figure out, could I have gotten a better edge against this person? I was 10% to win. Could I get to 20, 30, 40, 50? I try everything I can think of. When I run into something where I'm like, okay, that was just an insane Jotun lineup with like the strongest cards in the game, and I can't even get to 1% win with anything that I can build out of my collection. It's a little discouraging, and I could see other people feeling that way, and that's why I'm really excited about. I think like Weirdbeard seems like he's got a handle on it, and I think he's going to make changes over time. Slowly. I don't expect them to just make radical changes after day one, but I think the ghost card tournaments is going to be a great start.
I think after Splinterfest, those ghost tournaments are going to be implemented, right? They're going to use Splinterfest as that springboard to showcase.
I'm really looking forward to it. It was a shame that Splinterfest overlapped with TwitchCon, so we won't be able to go. But it's pretty cool to. I'm just looking forward to seeing it, and hopefully, a lot of people get interested in that type of format. And we start to see a few more things down the road that let people, test their skill in these ghost card tournaments or whatever else they come up with.
Yeah. So I was just going to mention as well, I don't know if you're aware of the Brawl Horse. Weirdbeard does have every so often. I don't think it's regular, but he does have it. So if you kind of find out about that, he'd definitely be up, for your input.
No, I actually hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, in Discord.
You want to give me? Oh, is this?
So he essentially runs like a tournament and brawl specific town hall, and it's I would say his cadence has been about once a month, and a much smaller community hops on in the Discord. But you're live feeding questions and comments and thoughts to Weirdbeard. He'll address them and take the gems back to the team and kind of address what he can. But it's a really cool kind of open discussion around, what is the future of tournaments and brawls. And being in Asia, time zones don't always align to where I can hop on, but I have hopped on a couple of his kind of self-hosted tournament brawl halls over the past couple of months. And he does a great job of, kind of addressing any and everything good and bad in the discussion. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled on, I think he posts most of that stuff in the Brawl chat on the Splinterlands Discord. So if you subscribe to that role, you'll get a notification next time he's running one.
Cool. Yeah, I'll try to check one of those out. Yeah, I think that's one thing Teen does really well is, communicating with the community and having those town halls and trying to incorporate people's feedback. It's definitely a strong community of people that really love this game. So I think they're doing a lot of things right. And my criticisms come out of love. I want to see the game thrive, and so I just like to throw my thoughts out with my decades of gaming.
No, definitely, man. I think like hearing from you, for someone who's just coming to the game is really important. And just talking about kind of listening to the community, like, and just going back to DAO quickly, and your DAO, like the Splinterlands has just kind of started integrating the DAO within Splinterlands, and it kind of feels that there's been like a bit of negativity with the whole voting system, but this is like what it was created for. I was just wondering, like, how in your community, how has the DAO worked in terms of like voting, and what kind of is this just like a few teething problems as people get used to it?
Yeah, so I mean,
experiences.
I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about that, but I'll tell you about the Alicoin one real quickly. So mainly the DAO is a new thing for us, and it's something we've been wanting to do for a long time, but with the coins being on Rally, there weren't really a lot of tools that we could tap into with the coin. There were things that were supposedly being worked on by the Rally team, but they never came to fruition. And I started to realize very quickly that we needed to get the coin off that chain. And we spent a long time until eventually I pretty much launched it myself on Solana. And we've been migrating people over manually, just having them send us their coin on the one place and giving them their coin on Solana. That's a process that we've been managing for about 2 to 3 months now, because there's just a lot of inactive people that don't check in very frequently and don't see the updates. So we're like sending out more email messages. And it's really now that it's fresh on Solana that we're able to tap into some of the DAO tooling that's been built there. And so we spent some time looking at, what are the different DAO tools? Which one do we want to use? We settled on Realms, which we really like. And the goal here is to encourage people to participate as much as possible in the DAO. So, what do you want us to spend the money that we have on? We went ahead and just pushed the Splinterlands one through ourselves. So we picked up that node license because we wanted to support the Splinterlands community, and we wanted to build sort of a relationship there where we would be earning assets over time that we could then delegate to our community. And I think that'll go over really well. I don't think there'll be like any teething problems with that specifically, but I do expect at some point there's going to be issues that people have that they're like, I want this thing to be done, but the votes are no. But overall, it seemed really positive. I think the one thing that we have going for us that's really nice is that like most of the people that own Alicoin own it because they've watched Allie for a long time, and they really like her, and they kind of trust that what she's doing is like the best thing for the community. And so we haven't had a lot of people, like overly criticize us for anything. I've actually been surprised, like the market's tanked pretty bad. And Alicoin's obviously gotten hit along with that. And we haven't had that many people, get upset that the value of their holdings has gone down. Like a lot of people have been really cool about it. And they're like, as long as you're still trying to build utility and, just do stuff for coin members, we'll have community game nights, and we're still hosting tournaments, and we'll do merch drops. And when Allie has sponsorships, we try to like get a certain number of free product to give out to the community. We gave out some Magic Spoon to some people who had Allie Coin. I think as long as we keep doing stuff like that, they seem pretty happy. And I think they'll trust most of our decision-making with the DAO, but I expect that over time, and this is like something that we actually talk about internally a lot, but it's like centralization into decentralization. I think of it as a spectrum. And I think right now it's a DAO, but it's a very centralized organization in that like Allie can pretty much do whatever she wants with it. And, like because so many people will just say, well, if Allie's for it, then I'm for it. And I think over time, the goal is to disperse the coin into more people's hands. And we do that in many ways. And then eventually have the DAO sort of run most of the activities that happen. And Allie's more like someone who works with the DAO rather than like the head of the DAO. But I think doing that day one is just a massive mistake. Just like I think Splinterlands trying to go fully decentralized day one would have been a massive mistake. I think you have to say, like, we're the team, we know what we're doing. You're trusting us to build this product. And maybe 10 years from now, when the product is like more built out and there's this legacy and history behind it, can we start having the community really like run things on their own? And so that's the progressive path we're trying to take. And yeah, we haven't had the same issues that you're talking about, but I'm interested to like just hear a little bit more about what those issues are and see if I can just like, you know, put my finger on it a little bit better and maybe give some insight.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, possibly now you mention it, is that your community is different to ours. I think your community seems just happy for just to maintain that, just to have utility, right? But possibly in the Splinterlands community, people have got a lot more at stake, right? You know, there's people that are heavily invested in these games, and I'm thinking that's the reason why there's been a particular kickback. I think, am I right, Ben? The main kickback was the vote for rewards for holding tower defense cards. Is that right?
No, I think the biggest backlash, at least that I've seen thus far, was around the Rift Watchers pre-sale. There was a couple of snafus where the UX on the pre-sale kind of transaction process was not very user friendly, and therefore folks who would have qualified for bonus packs didn't necessarily put in the correct number of vouchers to redeem for those bonus packs. But it was essentially a race against time, and in that frantic transaction trying to complete it, they missed a step, and the team kind of took responsibility of, we could have made the UX a little bit more friendly. There was something else. I think there was a legitimate technical user interface error that caused some issues in the pre-sale taking place also. And I think the community just kind of responded with a little bit of backlash that this was going to set a bit of a dangerous slippery slope and a precedent of how do you manage refunds? How do you manage, botched transactions for those folks who, qualified for the bonus card, the Dragon Legendary that's attached to purchasing packs in the pre-sale, extending the print run on that. It kind of, devalues the card overall. So I think there was that was the biggest kind of pushback that I've seen with the DAO thus far.
So is that, I guess, I might be misunderstanding, but I mean, that seems more like just not really a DAO problem, but sort of just like a operational or execution problem.
Correct. I would say yes. I think that's just the first. I think the DAO has done a good job of representing the people in terms of what are the overall wishes of the community. But Kieran and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's more just the very vocal minority who kind of feel a little bit slighted. But to be fair, I think as testament to this affecting absolutely everybody, I don't know if you were there, Mason, for the Rooney sale, but Aggroed and the team, they ran kind of an impromptu town hall sort of thing, broadcasting to the Splinterlands community as the sale was, leading up to the live point, and then for a few minutes beyond that. And Aggroed ran into a technical issue, just like one of us peasants at the bottom. And I think it just goes to show that everybody is subject to these sorts of errors, and the team does try to do right by those folks who were present and it making the attempt to do so. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It was an operational technical issue, not so much the DAO failing. But yes, this was the first issue that I had seen where there was significant pushback as a result of the DAO's democracy.
Yeah. But the one I was talking to, it was the tower defense. People just didn't want SPS to be given to people holding tower defense packs.
But was that out of the DAO? Maybe I missed. How do you mean?
Just there was just a vote to give people holding tower defense packs SPS.
And they voted no on that?
I just saw that they voted for to give people SPS.
I would say, yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple of things to talk about here. Like, in general, this is one of the funny things about DAOs is oftentimes the voting is decentralized, but then the execution is very centralized. So it's like, I've seen this in past DAOs where they voted like, God, I don't want to say it was Sushi Swap, but it was like one of these DeFi protocols, and they voted, let's burn the mint key so we can no longer mint more of these tokens. Like, we want to cap the supply and we want the key burned. And they voted, let's burn the key, but then the devs didn't burn the key. They're like, okay, we won't print anymore, but we're not going to burn the key just in case you guys change your mind later. But that's not really how it works, right? Like, if the DAO votes for it, then they should have to do it. And then if they can't undo it, oh, well, that's what the DAO decided. It's just like if a centralized entity decided to burn the key, you wouldn't be able to undo it. I think that it's an interesting point of decentralization. Like, how decentralized can you actually make something? Certainly with something like Ethereum, you can make it very decentralized because most of it is just a software protocol. But if you're running like a real estate operation, even if it's decentralized, you're still dealing with centralized entities at the end of the day. And I think with a game development, it's really hard to fully decentralize the entire game. You still got the developers and they're still making decisions, and they can influence the community a lot. And then, so you see these DAOs making decisions like, we don't want the cards to be printed SPS, but I mean, the devs can still implement something, or they can still try to sway the community. Obviously, listening to what the DAO wants goes really far in earning trust and building an ecosystem where people really believe in what you're doing. But you also have people who disagree on subjects, and when they get outvoted, they get very vocal about it. Like you were saying, this vocal minority. I mean, they're literally the minority because they got outvoted in the DAO, but then they're very upset about the result, and they go around kind of campaigning, trying to change things. I think to some degree, this looks like an issue, but in reality, I actually think this is a healthy part of what a DAO should be, is you're going to have people that disagree on things, and being able to voice your side and convince people to join. And if you can, then you get to sway the tide. And if you can't, then that's really what the community wants. And you're just the vocal minority, and you're going to have to deal with the situation. And I think like these are some really cool concepts about DAOs in general. And it'll be interesting to see how they evolve in the future, to really decentralize and take some of this decision-making away. Like Realms does some really interesting stuff with treasury assets, where you can't actually move the assets out of the treasury without a signature from the DAO itself, which you can only obtain if people vote according to the rules for that signature. And so maybe one day, like the SPS disbursements will directly come out of a DAO wallet that needs votes to move that SPS in the first place. I don't know if that's how they're doing it now, but more of these decision makings, like even pushing code that goes to the servers or impacts a card change. If they burn the admin keys, and the only way to make updates to that code is using the DAO itself, that could be really interesting. You could nerf and buff cards with DAO votes. And I find those kind of concepts, like just super intriguing. And I hope that someone implements some version of that someday so we can really see it in action.
I wonder if there's any teams that are considering, and Mason, I'm going to default to your kind of crypto prowess here, but it feels like such a dangerous game I don't know, the game that you just referred to, where the DAO voted to burn the minting keys, and then they kind of faltered backwards and decided not to. But I wonder if there's an opportunity to beat that by providing kind of both aspects of code preloaded or moved into production potentially, and then the big red button is tied to the vote. Is that something that you feel like would be a potential path forward, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually something that Realms is kind of doing now. You're allowed to transfer your mint authority into the DAO wallet. And so we could do this with Allie Coin, where we could transfer the mint authority into the wallet, and then they could vote not to ever transfer the mint authority out, and they could never vote to mint more tokens. I don't know if you can actually vote to burn the Mint Authority, which is something you can do normally, but I assume like one day that'll be a total possibility, and I don't see why it can't happen on every chain.
Yeah, it's
No,
new territory for me, man. The prospect of having just a valid say and a vocal say in the direction of the game and the community is it's such a cool prospect. And you know, Splinterlands is my first kind of introduction to all of this. To see all of this kind of play out is, yeah, it's fascinating.
well, I think like it just gives just people can see their votes. When they vote, they see the end result quite quickly, right? If you're voting when you're voting in the elections, you vote for someone, but you don't, you know, I might touch a few nerves here, but you don't necessarily see any, you know, reward at the end of it, or you don't see any change.
That immediate feedback.
Yeah.
It's really nice in blockchain how just immediate the feedback is on all of your actions. And yeah, I mean, mail-in voting, not my favorite. You know, won't get into politics or anything, but you know, I just think it's old. Like it just feels like an old technology. I'm not saying that anything was tampered with, but it certainly seems easier to tamper with than blockchain. And I love like the transparency, the immediate feedback, the fact that you can see so much of the information on the voting.
Yeah.
Like I really do feel like that's the way forward for, you know, how countries should operate, you know, but countries tend to lag behind in technology for a very long time. So who knows when we'll see anything like that in government.
And I think like the powers that be will be holding on to that old way of doing it for a long time. I'm sure they're quite happy for it to stay the same.
So for now, we get to mess around in our little microcosms of different crypto communities and see what it's like if you tried to run something in a more decentralized way. And again, it's a spectrum. There's people who try really hard to be as decentralized as possible, and there's people who try to just be a little bit decentralized. Like certain decisions are up to the community, but at the end of the day, most of the stuff's up to me. And I think both are viable paths forward for all sorts of different projects. And when it comes to money, I think it should be as decentralized as possible. But when it comes to a video game, I think it just depends on what you're trying to design around.
Well, I think it also depends on the team, like you mentioned before, right? If like we've got like me and Ben totally trust this team. So to be honest, I love the idea of decentralizing Splinterlands, but I'm not, you know, I don't mind
It's
the
kind of like,
steering the ship a little bit.
Do you trust the community or do you trust the team? Because if you leave it up to the community, they could make some really bad decisions. And if you trust the team, then maybe you just want them to be making the good decisions rather than let the community decide for something that kills the game. And yet that's why I'm saying, you know, like the viability of it it's questionable. It's just kind of like, you know, what do you want to try to do? And what is your community like? And I think, you know, some people are going to see success in both paths.
Yeah.
Well, I think this kind of brings us full circle to something you mentioned earlier in the episode where, you know, Web3 is really community driven. And it's about those, you know, the depth of those connections and not how many connections. And it feels like Splinterlands, the community is a direct result and it's correlated to the culture that the team, Aggie, Matt, and co have kind of built in that those leadership positions and the type of mind and person that the game attracts as a result of that. And there's a lot of really sharp, really intelligent folks in the community that, you know, it can't just be all about you. In order for, you know, your assets to increase, everybody else's needs to rise with that tide as well. Yeah. So it's new territory. And, you know, like Kieran said, I've got full faith in Aggie and co to kind of take us in the right direction. But as we're moving more towards the community power to make those democratic decisions, it's, you know, it's going to be interesting. Where do we misstep and do we bite our tongue that we, you know, made that hiccup and have some regrets, but hopefully we're learning and making better decisions next time.
And I think that's why we're trying to move a little slowly in that direction, right? We're going to be opening up more and more things for the community to vote and make decisions on. But the core of the project is still very much like me, Allie, and Alex working together, trying to build cool things for the community to do. And I think it'll be that way for the foreseeable future. But that long-term vision, you know, maybe a decade from now or something, is that a lot of this is going to be run by the community, and we can hopefully put the right people in place to take care of all of the different things that we want to be happening. And I hope Splinterlands finds that path forward as well, because that core team you were talking about can't last forever. Maybe they've got another 10 years, maybe another 20 years, but I think that if you have a really good game on your hands, you want to see it last as long as you can make it. So, games like World of Warcraft been around for a very long time, and Magic been around for, gosh, I don't even know. I want to say like 40 years, but if Splinterlands can make it 40 years, I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, man, definitely. All right. So is there anything you want to kind of tell us about before we hit the big challenge? You've got, is it, am I saying it right? TwitchCon? Is that right?
TwitchCon,
okay.
yeah.
TwitchCon, okay.
Yes, it's Twitch's convention. We're doing an event there. I will say, had a little bit of a scheduling hiccup. I reserved a table like 2 months ago for an arcade bar, and they somebody, I don't know, some rich person came in and rented out the whole thing. So we've had a little bit of scheduling complications, but we're figuring it out, and we are going to have an event there for Alicoin holders. We'll do something fun. I still think we have a shot at that location, but they offered us up another location. It's like 2 miles away. I feel a little bad because like this one's so close to the convention, and the other location is like a bit farther. So we might like Uber some of the big holders over, so they don't have to deal with their own transportation. But yeah, I just think like, we've been doing a lot of online events, and we're really excited to finally have an in-person event where Alicoin people can hang out with each other, play video games. That's what we like to do, chat about stuff, and just have fun.
Nice. So you say this is the first time you guys have met your community face to face?
Well, we've had Ali Straza meetups in the past with other fans and community members from Ali's Twitch channel. This is the first crypto-focused IRL event that we're going to have, where it's specifically for Alicoin holders, and we're spending a little bit more money to make it more fun. We're going to be like paying for people's drinks and food and arcade games if we end up being at CoinOp. It's just a little bit more crypto focused, and there's going to be some new people, but there's still going to be some of those old people that we've met before.
So you're going to have some tournaments there?
So we thought about doing that. And I think that was my original idea, was like, we have a big tournament in a bar somewhere, but then Ali wanted it to be more like free play arcade games. And so that's how we came across the arcade bar, and that whole idea sparked up. So I think we're going to keep it a little bit more casual, just have it be about having fun playing games and not centered around a tournament. But that's something I'd really like to do one day, is have in-person tournaments with games. And I think if Web3 gets big enough, then that's probably, we'll find a game to have. Maybe it'll be Splinterlands.
Nice.
Hopefully Web3 does get big enough. It feels like it's been moving that direction for a really long time. And hopefully we see the day that Web3 is big enough to drive something like that. Just for my own curiosity, Mason, where is TwitchCon this year?
TwitchCon's in San Diego.
In San Diego. Okay, cool. Awesome. Anything else you want to plug? I know we've got Alicoin.io. Is that the best place to kind of get updates and new info and register for the TwitchCon booth and the arcade bar?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably our best plug. We try to share everything in the Alicoin Discord and the Alicoin website. So if you want to hear more from our team and what we're doing in crypto, or just chat with us about anything, could be Splinterlands, could be something else, hop into our Discord. That's really the best place to talk with any of us. And I'll probably have more shout outs in the future, but again, I don't want to get ahead of myself anymore. So that's Alicoin is really the thing that I'm mainly focused on right now.
Cool.
Right on. All right, Kieran, you want to get that challenge fired up?
Okay, I'll send you through a challenge. What's your in-game name?
I'm Masongos1. It's Mason and then GOS and then 1.
GOS and then 1. And I sent through the challenge. Is it gold level is okay, right?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think Allie mentioned that you guys are sharing a chain golem and a Dr. Blight. Do you have those cards under your account at the moment?
I might have one of them.
Nice. Playing the
Which
cards
one?
close to the chest. All right.
Are you okay? Should we just do? Okay, yeah, all
Yeah,
cards.
will I see the challenge pop up on my screen?
You will, yeah. Just double check. You got it?
All right, here we go.
Okay. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so this is Little League rule set, 13 mana cap. And we've got fire, water, earth, and death. Okay, this is going to be a tricky one.
Without seeing screens, I'm making a bold prediction of a couple Dr. Blights making appearances. I can see the strategy wearing in those computer screens here.
Mason's gone very quiet there.
Thinking. All right. It's Little League. How much strategy can we get?
So while that's loading up, was there anything that you were either cards or abilities or kind of new approach to the cards in general with Rift Watchers, Mason? Was there anything that kind of stood out to you?
I honestly have been thrown a little bit for a loop with it. I will say some of those taunt guys seem pretty good. The dragon one and the neutral one, I've been trying to make them work. You know, I like to play that classic white strategy with like a shield bearer taunt, and you're just trying to like heal it and armor it and resurrect it. And those guys I've started slotting them in on the higher mana rounds, and the dragon one is especially powerful. And I think he has void armor already, so you don't need to be playing Wraith. You can play a dragon summoner and then play that card and then still pick white and play the Adelaide to resurrect it. And that's been fun. I've also been trying out that green guy with the close range. I really like that one big dude who's got triage. I play him up in the front, so he'll heal the back line, and then I'll try to play like a backline taunt, and that'll be getting triage healed while the goblin, the 6-drop goblin, is healing the front line. And like there's some pretty cool things happening there.
Yeah, fun, man. Yeah, I'm still in the process of kind of. It sounds like you did go a little bit all out with some Rift Watchers cards, or
I did. I picked up a few. Yeah.
Nice.
We picked up 575 packs.
Oh, very good.
Nice.
All right.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. So I will. Can you see? You can see the screen, all right, Mason?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm watching it on mine too. Should I pause it?
Yeah, maybe pause.
Yeah. Okay, I'll pause.
Oh, all right. So do you want to talk through your lineup?
Yeah. So my idea here was like, if you play like Little League, Dr. Blight's pretty popular, but it was pretty low mana. And so I thought like, okay, I'll have a void guy in the front, just in case you play like lots of little magic dudes. And then if you go for a similar strategy to me, I wanted to have a Pellicor bandit to sort of pick at your back line. Just in case you had like, you know, a tankier front line or some utility that I wasn't throwing in there. And then in case you were copying that as well, I was like, I'll throw the 0-drop in the back. And then Igor is just like an insane 2-drop with the stun. I figure if you go for one big dude or your guy in the front's hitting harder than mine, the Igor is going to like stun him and hold him down a bit, which should give the monk enough time to heal and keep himself alive. So that was sort of my thought process with how I designed this one.
Nice, man. Well, I just realized I'm playing the master tactician here. So I've gone for, Kayla, and I've gone for the Cephalopod at the front. Yeah, I was just thinking you're going to drop Dr. Blight on me. that was my pure thought. So I was just kind of trying to get someone meaty at the front. And I've got the healer. I've just gone for the fiend at the back. I've gone for the chaos agent, and I've gone for Medalli Guardian, just to trying to heal my Cephalopod from all those Dr. Blight magics that I'm not going to be getting now. And I've gone for Igor in the back. But looking at it now, I just think your bandit's going to get me.
It's a seafood dinner, bro.
The only thing
first
I'll
course
say is,
Cephalopod.
yeah, trying to go for the Guardian versus Blight doesn't usually work out because of the affliction. But I think like you might have had enough stats and stuff to deal with it if I had gone for that. Because the biggest problem I think with Blight is he doesn't do that much damage. I think in gold he's only doing 1, right?
I think he drops 2. Level 3 gets 2.
Oh, he gets 2 at 3. Okay, I probably should. I mean, he probably was worth playing, but I kind of felt like going the counter Blight strategy might be better than just trying to fight a mirror match. And I'm surprised you didn't play him. If you haven't, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I've just been leveling up my cards recently, so I just want to. I always kind of get done in by this, by looking at it, just pretty weak Cephalopod, but he always is a bit of a mainstayer. But
he's a good tank for 3 mana, I will say. Yeah. Like in Little League, I definitely have thrown him in there before. I think I really just wanted to have Void in case you went for some magic damage.
Yeah.
But you didn't. So the Void's kind of useless, but I still feel like Zenith Monk is a really good tank.
Amazing.
He's big, he heals. In Little League, he's often not taking that much damage. And I was hoping between the Igor stun and his heal that he would tank for quite some time. And looking at your lineup, you don't have too much damage going on because you went with the Medalli Guardian. So I actually think he's got a good chance at living here.
Did you see the outcome already, Mason?
I've watched like 3 attacks or so. So
is my ego down already?
But I do think I kill your Igor before you kill my monk, which I think means I'm going to win the match, but we'll find out because I don't think I got deep enough to know for sure.
Yeah, I think. What are you thinking, Ben? I think I know what you're thinking.
Like I said, man, seafood dinner. First course is the Cephalopod grilled.
Well, that amateur. Okay, let's press rumble. Let's see.
The bandit and the monk is a tough combo.
Bandit is such a strong card.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
and I missed your monk at the beginning.
Yeah, those misses were huge. I don't know even if you land them all, if you take it down, but you definitely have a better chance.
Okay, the Igor is down. I think it's just going to be a slow,
just bandit chipping away.
Yeah,
exactly.
Cephalopod's doing his best, but he's got no support, which is like very silly. I've been kind of changing my tactics, trying to get as much attack in as possible. Dr. Blight was just in my head too much. But I think even Dr. Blight, even if I had done that lineup.
Yeah. That's going to be the bug game.
Oh no, I'm gonna get skunked 2 times in a row from the guests.
Not a drop of damage. Yeah, nice.
Not a drop of blood. Well done, Mason.
Well, thank you.
Well done indeed.
Cool, man.
Yeah, that's just like my favorite part about the game is just thinking through like how can this fight play out and what sort of lineups are going to beat it and finding like those interesting axes of attacking the opponent without opening yourself up to too many weaknesses.
Have you been doing any of the tournaments yourself?
So I haven't actually. I've done a couple brawls, which I'm just getting into, and those have been pretty fun. I did pretty well on my first one. I think all wins except 1 loss, and then the second one did not go as well. I went like 5-4, which I was still
that's
happy
respectable.
Enough with. But yeah, some of those brawl cards are very strong, and I was not expecting them, and I did not have any. Tournaments, we're thinking about it very soon. I think we wanted to run our tournaments first, just to see sort of like what the experience was like, how the tournaments kind of work. I was a little confused about like anytime versus the live ones. And now that I think I've got a better grip on it, I think we'll be, Allie and I both testing ourselves in a couple of these.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just as to kind of fill some curiosity, favorite Splinter. You've mentioned Death a couple times. You've mentioned Life a couple times. A little bit of a coin toss there. So do you have a favorite Splinter? Or you have a favorite card?
I'd say my flavor, like I mentioned Black when I started. I was like, I kind of want to try it out. I haven't seen a ton of good Black builds. And I was like, I wanted to make it work. Since then, I've kind of been trying out a bunch of different things, and I think my favorite is Blue. I just really love like Kelia, so good, and all like the blue sneak stuff, the Deep Lurker, the Pelcor Bandit. They've also got really good tanks in Bakjira and the that Stethropod and
the Wave Brood.
The Wave Brood, yes, also very, very strong. Well, I just like all those cards, and Igor is so much fun to play with. Like whenever he stuns somebody, I'm just like celebrating it. Yeah.
Are you aiming to get to Diamond? Is that a bit of a goal for you, or you're happy just to kind of level up? I think
at some point I'll probably start pushing for Diamond. I think right now I'm trying to decide if I really want to do that. I've been, living a little vicariously through Allie, and we've grinded to Diamond together and played. And she actually just hit Diamond on her own the other night, and I was like,
nice.
Good job, that's awesome. But I'll probably get my account to Diamond at some point. I think I was waiting for Rift Watchers to come out, see what we get, see if we can, build 2 collections without spending just a boatload of money. And I think we're getting close, so we'll see. But it seems like the game offers enough of a variety of ways to play that, grinding to Diamond's not kind of the end all be all. And that even in our guild, like we don't even have Diamond phrase. And so I can be competitive in gold, and there's other tournaments in the game in gold and below. So I might just mess around in gold tournaments, phrase, whatnot, and see if Diamond ends up calling to me or not.
Awesome.
Nice. Okay, man. Well, it's been great talking to you, man. I really, you guys are really burning your own path. So I'm really excited to see the future of what is Alicoin. It's going to be exciting stuff, I think.
Yeah, me too. And thanks for having me on. I'm also excited to see what comes of Splinterlands, and they're just working on so much stuff. I can't imagine it looks the same in 5 years. And I'm part of the ride now.
Awesome.
Nice, man, nice.
Well, we're glad to have you and Allie both, man. I think I speak for both of us in saying it's been great conversations, just kind of understanding your Web3 journeys, your vision for Allie Coin, and just getting your kind of hot take on, what does the future look like for Web3 as kind of the universe and Splinterlands specifically, and hearing, the way you guys are kind of pioneering and innovating with Allie Coin. And yeah, I'm going to echo Kieran. It's exciting to see, and look forward to seeing, what kind of paths you guys pave in the future, man.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we appreciate those words every time we hear them, and just thanks for having us on and letting us, giving us a platform to chat about this stuff. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys, you have been listening to
People's Guild.